And we're on. This is 3 yards per carry. I'm Alfredo Arteaga. Simon Clancy is here. Chris Kaufman is here. We have the full cast on what is a momentous day. Is it a new direction or somewhere where you thought we were going anyway? Because it's pretty popular right now on Twitter, and let's just get into it right away. I do not think we're going to break down Josh Uche on this podcast or Tutu Atwell. There'll be time to talk about those guys. We're going to talk about Jaylen Waddle exclusively and what it means for the draft in the second half of the show. The first half, we're just going to talk about this trade. Simon, what does it mean for this? Because I don't think that what is the popular narrative right now on Twitter is correct. Everybody's screaming tank, 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 tank. If it were tank, 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 I think they would have taken the entire cap hit or as much as they could have of Tua on the first year. And maybe they would have not signed Malik Willis, and they wouldn't be doing all the maneuvering they've been doing in free agency so far. What is your thoughts on this Jaylen Waddle trade?
Well, as it pertains to the word tank, first of all, I still think it can be a tank, but everybody just thinks you're tanking for a quarterback, right? What if they already have? I think the trade was a what's the right word? Moratorium, but essentially a signal that they believe in it in Malik Willis. And I didn't think it at the time, and I thought about it, and I actually thought, because my initial thought was, wow, how are you going to fairly judge this quarterback to whom you've essentially, it's a 3-year contract, but you can get out of it after 2, that you've essentially asset stripping him? How can you judge him before the 2027 draft, right? Before Arch Manning, then Norris Sellers, Dante Moore, Brendan Sorsby, Mensah, all these Sam Levitt, all these kids, right? How can you possibly do that? How is it fair on Willis? How is it fair on the Dolphins? And then I thought, actually, what if they've already made the decision? What if they've already made their evaluation? Their evaluation was 2024, 2025, right? In practice on the scout team every single day, seeing him. They have had the absolute perfect front seat insight. When Malik Willis said that every time he saw John Eric Sullivan in the corridor, he'd stop him and say, how do you think I'm doing? And Sullivan would literally give him like a 10-minute breakdown on how he thought he was doing. So Sullivan clearly knew as well, reviewing all the film and that sort of stuff. What if their evaluation of Malik Willis happened not in 2026, but in 2024 and 2025? And actually what they're doing is that they're managing the decline and tanking, in inverted commas, but they're not tanking for a quarterback. They're tanking to put themselves in the very best position to be able to, let's say they end up with the first pick, but let's say they end up with the second pick and quarterback needy teams want to move up. They're in an amazing position then to take an absolute bounty of picks, of players, of whatever, because teams are going to want to move up for quarterbacks because it's the most important position in sports. I think that Sullivan believes that he has the other thing that strikes me, just to change tack slightly, is that he has been completely 3 for 3 on what he said at the press conference when he first joined the team. The first thing was, we are going to get the quarterback first, and then we're going to build around it. We're not going to build a team and then find the quarterback. What did he do? They went out and got Malik Willis straight away. Number 2 was essentially nobody's off the table. We want draft picks. Okay, we want as many draft picks as we can possibly get. What have they done? They traded away Minka Fitzpatrick, got a draft pick. They traded away Jaylen Waddle, they got a draft pick. And the third thing is, it hasn't happened yet, but he made it very, very clear, and then Hafley made it very, very clear, we are going to build from the inside out. That to me means offensive and defensive lines. It does not mean Mansour Delane. It does not mean Jordan Tyson. Certainly not at 11 anyway. To me, it means we're going to take the best available offensive lineman, whether it's Mauanoa, whether it's Spencer Fano, whether it's Vega Ioane, whoever it is at 11. And then whether, who knows at 30, whether or not it's Blake Miller to play right tackle or guard, whether it's, Max Ionich or, to come in and be a right tackle, whether it's, Keldrick Falk, whether it's Zion Young, whether it's, I think that's what they will do. And why wouldn't it be that? Because that's what he told us he was going to do. And he stuck to what he was going to do, Chris. He said he was going to get the quarterback first, and he did it. And he said he wanted to build through the draft, and he's getting draft picks. And that, to me, I think it's a fair trade. I think the Dolphins got a good price for a player that they were clearly willing to get rid of at the back end of the year when they turned down the trade from Buffalo. I'm glad they didn't trade him within the division. He's a 27-year-old receiver who He's only missed 5 games, but he's had some of the soft tissue injuries that slowed him down. There's been some drops, and I think that he was a good receiver for the Dolphins. I don't think he was a great receiver, and I think we got a decent price, and we rebuild, and they're clearly putting themselves, Chris, in a situation where it's terrible for a year, but they know that they've got the comfort of an owner that knows what the direction of travel is. Troy Aikman's going to be there. He knows the direction of travel because that's what they said. And Sullivan has been completely true to his word from day dot, and we're seeing it play out in front of our eyes. And if on April the 23rd or 24th, whenever the first night is, and we pick Vega at 11, he will be 3 for 3 in terms of things that he said, that he prophesized in that press conference, Chris. And I think that he must be applauded for that.
Yeah, one last thing on that. He also, maybe he's a poor poker player, but he also named 4 players at his introductory press conference, and none of those 4 players were Jaylen Waddle. And then it was Achane Brewer. Yeah. It was Achane Brewer, Paul, and Brooks, which is good news for those 4 guys, I guess. But
when he sat down with the team social team, and Travis did the interview with him, he had to be reminded that Waddle was that might not be anything. Big day, lots going on, very upset, all those things. But Chris, sometimes the answer's right in front of our nose.
I think you just got to listen to him. I think you nailed it on the head. Like he said it. He laid it all out there. Quarterback comes first. He always said that. And then he said that, yes, we need to build from the inside out. He said that we're not big players in free agency. We only use free agency to find difference makers. Malik Willis. And he said that, we'll utilize free agency, more when we get a chance, when we get our salary cap in order. And I think that what you've seen this year is just a train of veteran minimum type signings, which is predictable. But if you're listening to the guy, then that's why it's predictable. So yeah, he is running through exactly the plan that he said he was going to run through. And I was warned about this, earlier in the off season, after the GM had been hired, after the head coach had been hired, basically, Waddle's not off the table. No, they're not active sellers here, but if they get the same offer that they got last year at the trade deadline, get ready. That could happen, and I warned our Discord people about it a month ago because that's where this was possibly heading. So I think that they got a pretty good deal for Jaylen Waddle overall. There's a little bit of dispute because what Jeremy Fowler said earlier today does contradict with what the Spotrac people are saying right now. The Spotrac people are saying that the Denver Broncos are paying all $17.2 million of the cash owed to Jaylen Waddle for this year. I'm talking on a cash level. That includes option bonus, that includes salary, that includes roster bonus and workout bonuses, etc.
Which would be an amazing deal for the Dolphins.
Which would be an amazing deal. Absolutely amazing. First and third for that is an amazing deal. Jeremy Fowler suggested earlier, actually, that the Denver Broncos are only paying about $5 million of the cash owed to Jaylen Waddle this year, which would mean that Miami covered about $12 million of it, which is less than an amazing deal. But I think of it as basically they got offered a first round pick for Jaylen Waddle last year. A late first, of course, because it was the Buffalo Bills. And, of course, if the Buffalo Bills had done that last year, they would have ended up paying all of the $17 million this year. So the delta between that offer and this one would be the third-round pick and us paying $12 million. Therefore, we got a first-round pick for Jaylen Waddle, and we also got a third-round pick for the $12 million of cap credit that we handed the Denver Broncos, if Jeremy Fowler is right. But the Spotrac people are saying – They're pretty adamant on this. They're saying that the Denver Broncos are paying all $17 million, which would be, again, a phenomenal deal for the Miami Dolphins. I think there's a couple of angles to look at it. And one, the number 11 pick is now free to actually use because before I'm not sure that it was. John Eric Sullivan, again, listen to the man, listen to what he says. when he was asked questions like, are they going to send a draft pick to get somebody to cover some of his costs? He said straight up, he's like, I only have 8 draft picks this year, and I got to figure out a way to make that 10 or 11 draft picks. What did he just do? You know, and so they are not a team that's going to send a draft pick for salary cap relief. Actually, the opposite. They might give somebody else salary cap relief in order to get a draft pick. That's how important it is to them.
The one other thing I just want to say, just before we go on, just on that, just sorry to interrupt you, but is that I wonder whether or not the extra picks puts them in a position where if a player they love falls, say, to Kansas City at 9, let's say Caleb Downs or, you know, somebody they fall in love with, Styles, Bain, whoever, to get in front of the Bengals, for example, who might be looking for a similar help. Like if they, you know, if arguably, in my opinion, the best player in the draft, Caleb Downs, falls to 9, and the Chiefs decline to take him, it puts them in a position where they could say, and I know he wants the picks. I don't know,
but you never truly know. That's true.
You never know.
And they have that flexibility now. So they turned their 8 picks into 10 or 11 picks, just like they said they would. But I think that possibility, the possibility of using the number 11 pick on a player was not as strong as a lot of people were saying, or a lot of us. You know, we love to talk about like Ruben Bain. Are we going to get Francis Mauigoa? Are we going to get, you know, things like that? I think actually the odds were kind of low of actually using that pick. That trade down was option number 1, and there were probably going to be motivated sellers on that trade down. Now they can actually use the pick on a premium player, and now they have the number 30 pick, from which you pointed out, Simon, could be a landing spot for Ty Simpson, not for the Miami Dolphins, but for somebody else like the Arizona Cardinals, who would want to trade into the first round to get that 5th-year option for Ty Simpson. And so I think that and then the other angle that I would attack this from is saying, when you have Jaylen Waddle and he's a small guy, and you're also promising to get bigger in the room, which John Eric Sullivan said, trust him. He says what he's going to do. He wants to get bigger in the wide receiver room. Well, that kind of limits you in the draft, Simon. You know, I know you've looked at all of the wide receivers in this draft by now, but you're basically cutting off half of them and saying, well, I can only get the bigger guys because
we're getting rid of Makai Lemon, you're getting rid of Casey Concepcion.
We can't put together Casey Concepcion with Jaylen Waddle, with Malik Washington, when we just said we're going to get bigger in that room, right? So now you're clearing the decks a little bit, and now you can say, well, no, we can get Casey Concepcion, we can get Omar Cooper, we can get Makai Lemon, and still get bigger in that room because of what else we do at the wide receiver position. Like that. Still a possibility. So you've cleared the decks, you've opened up the draft, you've made it so that you can use the number 30 pick to possibly, you know, create a landing spot for some team for Ty Simpson, and in the meantime, you know, you've taken out, unfortunately, there is an unfortunate thing to this, and that is that Jaylen Waddle is a good player and a really good locker room personality and a really good teammate and a really good Miami Dolphin.
Yeah, I love to hear that he drove straight to the facility and said goodbye to all the staff and all the masseurs and the you know, catering staff and people like that.
You hate to see him go, but he is going to be 28 years old this year and this season, right? And if this is a rebuild, and if you're pretty much thinking that you might not be able to compete until 2027 or 2028, you're talking about a 29, 30-year-old, very, very highly paid player, and just the timelines might not match. Now, the thing that people are confused about with Malik Willis is they have to get out of their heads that this is a bridge quarterback. This is not a bridge quarterback. As you were saying, they've evaluated the guy for 2 years. They think this is a potential franchise quarterback. And I have likened him to taking a guy in the first round of the draft. This is, instead of using a draft asset for the guy, they used cap assets for the guy. Well, guess what? They have cap assets. Okay, not this year. There's an accounting crunch in 2026, but afterwards, they don't have enough payroll. They have way more than they know what to do with as far as cap room goes. So they used cap assets to get Malik Willis into town. And I do think they're going to continue the evaluation, because practice is one thing and 150 snaps of regular season is another. And 150 is not quite enough to really make that full evaluation, in my opinion. But I do think that you can evaluate the quarterback without him having to, it's not as if there can't be a good evaluation of a player unless everybody else is awesome with that player, right? You can evaluate the player. We have to do it all the time in college football, and looking at these players. So I think that they'll continue the evaluation with Malik Willis, but they'll evaluate Malik Willis, not the stats. The fans evaluate the stats. Okay. Yeah. The coaches and the scouts and the people in that front office evaluate the tape. And the tape is where you can evaluate Malik Willis and not his teammates. So I think they'll continue to evaluate him, and he will have a chance to impress them and say down the road, just like you said, we can take a ransom for that pick because somebody wants Lenora Sellers. Somebody wants Dante Moore.
Dante Moore, yeah.
So I think that you turn that into 3 first-round picks, and you continue this build at just an absolute blistering pace in terms of assets.
I'm just looking at the Denver Post, who are reporting on the story as it pertains to who pays what. And it says part of Waddle's value is that he's under contract through 2028 after he signed a 3-year contract extension with the Dolphins in 2024. Waddle has now $16.6 million in guaranteed money for this season, another $15.2 guaranteed for 2027. In March next year, an additional $8.2 for 2027 becomes guaranteed. Practically speaking, then, Waddle will cost Denver $40 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. Waddle has an option bonus due March the 20th this year, which likely gives the Broncos some flexibility on how they want to account for his 2026 money on their salary cap. If the bonus is exercised and all of Waddle's salary is prorated to signing bonus, he will count just $4.9 million over Denver's 2026 cap. Currently, his 2027 and 2028 salary cap numbers for the Broncos are $27 million and $29.4 million respectively. Denver, though, has plenty of time to work through how those numbers fit into their picture if they want to try and extend Waddle again or restructure his deal to create some short-term cap space.
To me, that would be a rare miss for Jeremy Fowler then, because that is very much running contrary to what he said earlier today. And that just makes the deal all the more fantastic for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go to break, but before we do, let me tell you, on tankathon.com, they've moved Miami all the way up to number 2 in draft pick value rankings. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 top 100 picks. This is going to be an exciting draft for the first time in a very, very long time. And they're going to have every opportunity in that 3rd round to do whatever they want with any of those picks, while having 4 third-round picks. So if there's a pet player for Jeff Hafley, he can take him. There's a pet player for Bobby Slowick, he can take him. They're going to have the draft capital.
He's called Jalen Kilgore. How much do you think? I mean, I think the Cardinals are the worst team. I mean, they've got the worst quarterback play, and I think that's a pretty poor roster.
The way they've structured that quarterback position, especially, is kind of like that's the tell, right? That's the
if you're going into the season with Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew as your guys, that's the
and Gardner Minshew might not be ready for training camp.
I wonder what the asking price would be on Marvin Harrison. Just saying.
That's a good question. Miami doesn't seem like they're in the trade of trading picks right now to teams, but they just got a haul.
There's an opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, so they just got a haul, so maybe they're feeling like they have something to work with. I mean, it brings back to the point that you already brought up very wisely, which is that having brought in this extra bounty of picks, even though I know that John Eric Sullivan wanted 10 or 11 draft picks in this draft, it does, listen, if the absolute right player, is sitting right in front of them, you have that flexibility. You have that optionality now, and I think that's pretty valuable.
Do we think, before we go to break, that's the last of it, trade wise, or do we
No,
think,
I think. Look,
there's
I'm
3
I'm,
players.
yeah,
Fuller,
I'm
Brooks,
I'm
HM.
yeah. No, there's one more. I think I'm in firm belief that they will retain Brewer. At least they're going to try to retain Brewer, Brooks, and HN. I think that they'll extend
Brewer's
HN.
really important because of his relationship with Malik Willis in Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't think that will.
I do expect.
No, he's not going anywhere.
I do expect. I do expect Zach Sealer to be on the way out.
That's a conversation. It could be a conversation in June when there's a, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers in front of me. There's a significant acceleration, I think, involved in Zach Sealer. You can check me on that. But which makes June a possibility, I guess. So, I think yes, Zach Sealer is the most obvious. The one guy that I don't think is truly going to get traded, even though everybody brought him up immediately, is Devon Achane. And that's just because I don't think the offers are there. I've never gotten the sense that the offers are there. It's not that other people don't find him valuable. It's that they're going to have a pretty high ask for him. He's 24 years old. And with what he's already accomplished in this league, I think they're going to ask, just like Jaylen Waddle, more than first round pick. We're talking first and third round picks, if not first and second round picks, that kind of thing. And I just don't get the sense that other teams, this is a player that was very specialized, potentially very specialized to the Mike McDaniel offense. And so I think that other teams are not necessarily going to, he's not as plug and play. You can put a Jaylen Waddle in just about any offense. And I don't think the same is true of Devon Achane, and that's even just taking aside the fact that he's a running back, and the running back position is some teams value it, some teams don't.
The one team I'd keep half an eye on with Achane is the Seattle Seahawks. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I will say this about Achane. You control him for another year past this year, and you have 2 franchise tags in your back pocket to play with. And on that first franchise tag, he would be very, very valuable as a trade asset with a franchise tag applied. So,
I do think they'll pay him, though. I honestly think they'll pay him. I think they'll pay him. I think they'll pay Aaron Brewer. I think they'll pay Jordan Brooks. The Zach Sealer point, again, I think that's a fair point to bring up, Alf, that they may trade him. But again, I see that being a post-June thing if that were to develop, because of the $7 million of acceleration or something like that would happen pre-June.
All right. Last thing before we go right to break, and this question is just for Simon. It all goes tits up, and you're sitting there at, let's say, number 3, and somebody offers you a haul for whoever, for I don't know, Darian Mensah.
So next year.
Yeah, in next year's draft. You're passing on Jeremiah Smith for a haul?
What do you say? What do you mean by tits up?
Awful season. They have the 3rd overall pick. They have an awful season this year.
Like, you've got to give me some sort of.
Okay, Malik Willis is not awful. He's actually, you could see it, but he's not. Like, remember, it's going to be 3rd. It's not going to be number 1 overall. It's not Arch Manning. You're not going to get the number 1 quarterback. So you're going to probably get the 3rd quarterback in the class. Are you passing on Jeremiah Smith? Or are you taking the haul for that pick?
Again, I need to know what the haul is. The other thing about the quarterbacks, though, is that 2027, we keep talking about how good it is. And sitting here right now, it does look amazing. 2028 is going to be pretty special as well. There's some serious quarterbacks that are going to be in the 2028.
Well, especially because these guys stay in. So, even some of the guys that we're talking about for 2027, are they really going to be there in 20? Is Arch Manning coming out in 2027? Do we know that?
I don't necessarily think it's an absolute slam dunk that Arch Manning will come out in 2027.
All right, I'll give you scale. So a team moves up from 10 to 3 first-round picks and a 3rd.
Yeah, you take it
over Jeremiah Smith.
Oh yeah, for sure. The only one that I'd potentially refuse that sort of haul for is if you have a line of sight on a specific quarterback that you think is the best quarterback in that draft. Forgetting that it's the 3rd overall pick, and now you might be taking the 3rd quarterback in the draft or something like that. If the guy available is the guy that you think is the best quarterback in that draft, and he just made it to you, talking about like the Bills with Josh Allen, like I believe they thought he was the best quarterback in that draft. If you have a line of sight on who you think is the best quarterback in that draft, you can refuse that haul. But for any other player, any other position, I'm not sure you can.
What if Malik has a good year? Not great, but good. You're like, okay, this is definitely potential wise. But Arch has an unbelievable season, comes out, wins the Heisman, wins the national championship, looks incredible, and you get the 1st overall pick.
You take Arch Manning, focus on potentially trading Malik Willis, and just because you take Arch Manning doesn't mean he's going to start right away, because that's the way the Green Bay method to start these guys as rookies.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it. Like they sit like too long.
Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love way, isn't it?
Sometimes they sit too long, right? So how long could Arch Manning sit while Malik Willis is out there? And if Malik Willis is out there, like, breaking ankles and, throwing piss missiles everywhere, then somebody's going to step up and want to trade for him, because guess what? You got him pretty well cost controlled for 3 years, Simon.
Yeah.
3 years. 3 years, you've got him pretty well cost controlled at $22.5 million. And that means that if he does go out there and, he's looking pretty good, then you have that choice. And some people would say, well, you can make the wrong choice, which Minnesota did. Right. And so that's, just be right. You're going to have to make the right choice.
It would be so Miami, wouldn't it, to trade away Malik Willis, take the best quarterback in the draft, only for that quarterback to bust and Malik Willis to go and win a Super Bowl.
And the Hall of Fame. By the way, we're going right to break right now, but Jaylen Waddle finishes 36 yards away from O.J. McDuffie on the all-time receivers list for the Miami Dolphins, and
didn't get
OJ was on Twitter saying, "Look, not that I wanted him to leave, but I'm still 4th." All right, Underdog Fantasy. The tournament is back, and the Miami Hurricanes are in it on Friday. They're the 7th seed. They're playing Missouri. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. Hopefully, they have just as long a run as the football Hurricanes had this fall, but the upsets are inevitable. Hopefully they are not one of them, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing an Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite player will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. Download the app today and use the promo code 3YARDS. That's the promo code 3YARDS, the number 3YARDS, to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code 3YARDS. Underdog. Make picks. Win money.
To be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And we're back. All right. Simon, you expressed your concern at the top of the show, and so did I on Discord. And by the way, if you guys want to become a member of our Discord, you got to go to Discord, and you go to discord.gg/onlyfins. The link is right there if you're watching us on YouTube, and I always put a link on every single one of our promos on Twitter, so you could, or Blue Sky. We're on Blue Sky as well, and you could check that out. $4.99 a month, all access. Do not do it anywhere else but on a desktop. Do not pay Apple money that you should be paying us.
Or
it's
it can
$4.99.
I mean, it can be on your phone. It can be a browser. It just has to be a browser, not through the iTunes or through or the Apple Store or through the whatever.
Plus, if you hate all of us, you still get Kyle.
That's true.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, if you can't stand any of us, you still get to talk to Kyle Krabs. That's not awful, you know. All right.
It's awful.
We talked about this on Discord, on our Discord OnlyFins again. But you talked a little bit about it at the top of this show, and that's my concern as well. I don't like my brand new shiny quarterback going out there naked on Sundays. That's why I believe that, and a trade of HN would be an absolute, it would be abhorrent in my opinion. But there's still ways to give him some help. But you're committing some early draft assets. Of those 7 in the top 100, 3 are coming directly from Malik Willis help. You would agree, right, Simon?
Skill position help or just help?
Skill position help.
No.
No.
I don't think so. 3, no. Maybe 2. Maybe
so you're not
2.
packaging a combination of picks to target that wide receiver you want at the top of the second round, let's say?
No.
Or that tight end?
No chance.
So you're just saying
tight end might be on the board.
So you're just staying put as far as skill players.
Well, I mean, I don't think they're going to take a receiver in round 1 because John Eric Sullivan has taken 1 since he was at Green Bay. It's just not a Green Bay thing. It's never been a Ted Thompson thing, was never a Ron Wolf thing, was never a Brian Gutekunst thing. They took Matthew Golden last year.
And it wasn't great until the very end of the year.
Yeah, and Golden only really showed up in the last week of the regular season and in the wild card round.
But boy, did he look fabulous in that wild card game.
Yeah,
I didn't watch him at all for the whole season, so I had no idea.
You thought he was good all year, right? You thought he was good all year.
I was like, boy, what a first round pick that is.
Look, it's a great receiver class. You go through it. I'm just doing the weights here while you guys are talking and we're chatting. I'm just putting in the weights and the size and the weights. My favorite receiver in the draft is Mekhi Lemon. Dolphins are bringing him in for a 30 visit. And people are like, I mean, it's amazing what happens on the internet. Like, he did the funny press conference where he's, the guy's an absolute introvert. I got loads. I tweeted that he was coming in for this 30 visit. Loads of people, no thanks, hated his interview. It's like, did you watch this game? No, I haven't seen anything. Just saw the interview. It's like, okay. No, yeah, he's red flag, terrible. Apparently he's a terrible guy. Like completely the opposite. 3-year team captain, complete team leader, like
3-year team captain.
3-year team captain. Guys,
that's huge.
At YouTube, and Simon, I know you're not up on what the kids are watching on YouTube, but my God, the thumbnails that they've made, that Draft Twitter has made for Mekhi Lemon, asking if he was on drugs, if there's something wrong with him.
Anybody else in this country, so
yeah.
But go and look at the interview that he did with NFL Network after his pro day. What a sweet kid! Like a really respectful, like really chatty. Maybe it was Jane Slater. I can't remember who it was, but just a really good interview. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yeah, I wish I could have done better today. I would like to run a little bit faster. Blah blah blah. But I can't be. I'm just blessed to be here. And yada yada yada. But chatty. I mean, people see one thing at a combine, and then somebody else says, "Oh yeah, it was terrible." I spoke to 2 teams, both in the NFC, who sat in a room with him and were like, "Kid's fine. The kid was great." Like, was he the best kid we interviewed? No, that was Sonny Styles. Well, that was Caleb Downs. But he was a really good kid. He's a kind of head down introvert. He loves singing. He's a golfer. Like he is, 4-year starter at varsity in high school, multi-year team captain in high school. Like holds his teammates to account, holds his coaches to account, but in the most respectful way ever. Like the guy's an absolute. His parents don't believe he's ever watched a movie all the way through because he's so obsessed with football. And he gets halfway through and he's just like, I've got to just think about football and stuff, and loses concentration. So yeah, I love Lemon, but you've got Carnell Tate, you've got Jordan Tyson. I don't think the Dolphins are going to take a guy that's had back-to-back season-ending injuries in Tyson. But that's
Chris
just the thing. You are. Yeah, of course
Chris Greer would.
You can go right the way through. Omar Cooper Jr., Malachi Fields, Chris Brazzell. Again, I had the Chris Brazzell thing today. It's like, don't draft a Tennessee receiver. It's just scout the player, not the helmet. It's kind of,
right.
I'm not a Denzel Boston fan, but there's Denzel Boston. There's Jeremy Bernard. I'm a big Jeremy Bernard fan. You got Josh Cameron at Baylor, is 6'1", 220. Eric McAllister at TCU, big guy. Surratt. We saw what he did with Mendoza in Indiana. Skylar Bell. You got Chris Bell. Yeah, I'm not a Chris Bell fan, but big guy, DeJaun Stribling, Ted Hurst, the Georgia State kid, is nearly 6'4", 206. You got Trey Lance's brother, Bryce, who's, ran out the building, jumped out the building at the combine, 6'3", 204. There's Malik Benson. Then you've got the smaller guys, Concepcion, Antonio Williams, Dion Burks. Who's the other kid that's really the slot guy who is a good player?
Zachariah.
Yeah, and then even go down to the kind of day threes with your Colby Youngs and your Dylan Bells. Day two, maybe Kendrick Laws. You got the kid that rocked up from John Carroll at the Senior Bowl, Tyron Montgomery, and was absolutely electric at the Senior Bowl. You go all the way down. There's some really good receivers, and Jeff Caldwell,
Caden Weegan, the Iowa,
and don't forget
the incredible return, man.
Yeah,
and don't forget that Malik Willis wants you really to take a really long look at CJ Daniels, as he said in his press conference.
Yeah, CJ Daniels. Yeah.
So
big
same question
too. He's like.
By the way, Simon, you agree with me, right? Like that the comparison of Makai Lemon with Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's spot on, right?
I mean, I've got my draft book in front of me, and it says the Biletnikoff. This is the opening. Biletnikoff Award winner is one of my favorite players in the draft, as well-rounded a player as is in 2026. He's an Amon-Ra St. Brown type who can kill you from the slot, but shouldn't be marginalized to just one position. I mean, that's literally what he is.
All right, Chris, same question. How do we help Malik Willis, our shiny brand new quarterback, this year? Not going forward, but for this year.
Take a page from the Chicago Bears. You know what they did right away when they hired their new coach to help out Caleb Williams? They spent enormous amounts of resources on that offensive line and made sure that he was protected. With Malik Willis, and he's kind of a shorter guy. Remember, he's not even 6'1", right? With Malik Willis, you're going to have to, and Alpha, I believe you brought this up, didn't you? When we talked about Malik Willis, you're going to need some good guards to help him on the interior, right?
Yeah, there's one weakness that he does have. Every quarterback is the same thing. They don't like trash at their feet. Pressure up the middle is a killer. But Malik Willis tends to drop his head when the pressure is up the middle.
Right. And did they promise Jamari Salyer a chance to compete for a starting guard position? Absolutely. But we know that he's also a really, he's ideal probably as the swing backup tackle behind Patrick Paul and Austin Jackson. That doesn't mean he couldn't end up being a starter at the guard position and still be the swing backup, because the Green Bay Packers were, I think, pretty notorious for moving those offensive linemen all over the place. They were very fluid in the way that they attacked that position. But I think you take a page from what the Chicago Bears did in their commitment to the offensive line, and you do look at Avenga Ioane, you do look at possibly Francis Maino, and it gets there, then what are you going to do? You're probably going to take him, right? I think that you focus on that. You get those guard positions nailed down. You're not counting on Jonas Avaiania to somehow miraculously be a completely different player. And this is what you want to do to help him out. Now, you can help him out. You brought up tight end position. Could they trade up for a tight end? I do think that a tight end kind of gives you a little bit of, almost a triple threat in terms of helping out the quarterback. So, yes, I could see a good tight end being a target in one of those picks. I don't know about pick number 30 or certainly not pick number 11, but you could see one being high up. I think that's how you start. That's how you help out Malik Willis. It's not about the skill position players that much. Because keep in mind, this guy's going to scramble a lot. So you're going to have to teach your scramble drills really well with the receivers. And these guys are going to get uncovered because Malik Willis has bought time with his legs. And no, that's not going to happen every single time. But I think that you look at the history of John Eric Sullivan in Green Bay, he tends to take wide receivers a little bit later on. They tend to have some success doing that too. And so I think that they'll look at some wide receivers, and maybe you do look at CJ Daniels, who is, obviously comes in as one of Malik's favorite people and players to throw the ball to. But I think in the meantime, Jalen Tolbert was an interesting signing because they already do have that relationship. Malik Willis and Jalen Tolbert. That's one of the reasons that Tolbert signed here. Tutu Atwell, already you've got your baked in Jaylen Waddle kind of replacement as far as being a deep threat speedster and also being kind of a smaller player. I think that you can help him out mainly and primarily by improving that blocking prowess along the front of the offensive line, which would really help you to try and dominate on the ground, which is the best thing you could do for Malik Willis. Absolute best thing you can do for him. So no, do I agree that, you know, a number X number of the first Y picks have to be skill position players to catch passes for Malik Willis? No, I don't agree with that at all.
One last thing before I go back to Simon. What's going on with your boy Jauan Jennings? Why isn't he on a team yet?
Is that for me or for Chris?
For Chris.
Oh, me.
He's the Jauan Jennings guy on this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm a big fan of his. I weren't the Dolphins involved in that? No, I thought they might.
There was a rumor.
There was a rumor.
Certainly. But
I think the longer he goes,
the more likely it becomes.
But who knows the longer it goes. But in the meantime, I mean, there's been talk about his I guess his comportment as a professional. And you know, he's a fiery guy, passionate guy, which can, you know, bleed into some bad things sometimes. There's talk of that. I don't know how much of that is just BS. So I can't really tell you.
Walker everybody thought Rasheed Walker was going to get a big contract, ended up with just a 1-year deal, and it may be that for as good as Jennings is in the run game, which I think is why the Dolphins, you know, he's got that feisty attitude. That I think that feisty attitude also can blow up in his face a little bit.
He's a very specialized kind of player. Like he's good. He's great in the run game, as you said, and he's great at getting open against man coverage from the slot. Right. These are things that he can do. And so you want a guy that can get open from in man coverage on third down and from the slot. And then that's what Kyle Shanahan has always said, is even when he had Deebo Samuel and when he had the other guy whose name escaped me now, you know, he always said that the guy who is on our team that is best at getting open against man coverage is actually Jauan Jennings. And that's what they utilize him in third down. That's a very specialized kind of player. That's a very, you know, kind of Jarvis Landry, but, you know, lesser kind of player. And it could be that he disagrees with that. It could be that he's got eyes that are bigger than his stomach right now.
All right, and on the way out, we will start with our draft series beginning next week. So might as well just lead into that a little bit here as we leave you until next week. Simon, what do you foresee is the most impactful player that can make it to 11? Realistically, because we already decided that Caleb Downs, in my opinion, Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles are the two most impactful players for the Miami Dolphins. Like, I think both of them would transform the defense. I think you could go from a bad defense to average with those two players, like either one of those two players, in my opinion. But I don't think either one has a shot in hell at making it to 11. So
I mean, somebody should get sacked. If it's hard to quantify Caleb Downs' role in many regards, because what he does is he ties that entire defense together. And I think if you can watch the All-22 of Ohio State, you just see three players moving differently to everybody else, and they almost move in unison. And that's Reese, Styles, and Downs. And I think if you watch, like, there's a thing. English listeners and soccer fans will kind of know that, like, if you sometimes see the overhead projection of little kids playing soccer, it's like birds, you know, have migrating birds all fly together. Like, everybody just moves about all over there, and that's the same thing with those three. But I think that Downs just ties it all together. He's so rangy. He's such a kind of a Buda Bakery, Brian Branchy kind of player. But everything is, he can play everywhere and anywhere. His technique is so good. Everything he does is at the absolute premium level. He is the move piece extraordinaire for a defensive coordinator. For a defensive coordinator like Jeff Hafley, he can solve structural problems. He has the versatility to be in the slot, to be deep, to be too high, to be part of the pressure package, all of those different things. He's so violent, he's so sudden, he just detonates blockers. Like, he's unreal. His block key deconstruction is sensational. And I just think if he can get to pick 11, that is the biggest slam dunk home run pick. And people say, oh, but he doesn't have any standout attributes. He's not big. He's not tall. Just watch people that say that, you're either not watching the tape or you don't understand what you're watching. So to me, Caleb Downs would be the guy.
So you think that there is a possibility he makes it to 11?
Well, safety isn't a premium position, right? But this is not a premium position draft necessarily. I mean, we're talking about, the best players in the draft. Potentially, you could make a pretty solid argument that the best 3 players in the draft are an off-ball linebacker, a free safety with varying designation on the back end, and a running back, right? None of those are premium positions. So, and there are question marks about the four premium positions. You've got the quarterback, the one of them, but we know he's going to go one, so he's out the race, right? Who left tackle? I mean, Spencer Fano is a right tackle and might be a guard. Mauano is a right tackle. So
might be a guard.
That might be a guard.
Or at least initially.
Yeah. Monroe Freeling looks like he's the number 1 left tackle and may go significantly higher. Cleveland at 6, for example. But there's question mark. He's got 1 year's experience. Corner is the 3rd premium position. And, we've got a guy, Mansell Delane, who's 5'10", just a hair over 5'11". We've got Jamod McCoy, who refused to run at the combine and hasn't played for a year. And we've got Avion Terrell, who's a nickel back. And then edge is the 4th position, right? And we've got a guy in Ruben Bain who is the outlier's outlier, as good as he is, but he will have the shortest arms of any first-round top 10 pass rusher in NFL history. As good as he is, and I think there's lots in his game that mitigates those short arms. But so there are question marks about those premium positions. But to me, if Caleb Downs gets to Miami at 11, that will be the biggest home run draft that this team will have had in a long time.
Yeah, before I go to Chris, Simon, on Monday, the Hurricanes are going to have their pro day. They are going to measure Ruben Bain's arms. If his arms come in longer, what do you do with that information?
I don't
well,
think you do it.
There was already like several teams piped up during the combine and said, we measured his arms and we don't agree with their measurement. Like they said they had him at like 32 inches or whatever, 32 plus inch arms. My answer to the question, because I don't think that either Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles makes it to 11. And I think that it might not even be close, to be honest. I think that rationality might prevail, but that is my answer. Ruben Bain. Like, you're going to ask me the same question. It's Ruben Bain. He could realistically make it because of all the boo birds and the guys that are caught up on prototypes and things like that. And yet everything about this player is like 6-time All-Pro. Like this is a guy that is going to be in your Ring of Honor one day, if not wearing a gold jacket. And I think that if he were to make it to number 11 overall, then you run up to the podium with the pick. And I don't care about a Chop Robinson, even though I liked him coming out of the draft, and I still like him. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Ruben Bain is your pick, and he can be a real. And the one thing about Ruben Bain, as opposed to some of the others, and where I have kind of in the back of my head about guys like Sonny Styles and, even to an extent Caleb Downs, is unique players have to be used uniquely. And if they're not used uniquely, then the shine comes off them, right? At least as far as their NFL, their reputational value is concerned. With a guy like Ruben Bain, if you can't figure out how to use him because it's extremely straightforward, it is you're not going to have to get up on a whiteboard and do a lot of thinking about this, how to use a Ruben Bain. I think there's an old saying that something like Warren Buffett used to say, buy a business that can be run by a room full of monkeys, because one day a room full of monkeys might be running the business. Ruben Bain is a guy that can be Ruben Bain no matter who's coaching and no matter who's making any decisions about your defense.
Yeah, Downs one of the two. You play him as an edge, third down. you kick him inside.
You can kick him inside or keep him on edge. It doesn't matter. Like, it's, he's pretty straightforward. I think it's hard to go wrong with Ruben Bain. That's what I would come away with.
That's my answer as well. Ruben Bain at 11 is just like, look, if he were 6'6", 270 pounds, he'd be the second overall pick
but that's why you could end up getting him, right?
Yeah.
Or
it's realistic.
If he wasn't any bigger than he is, if he was still 6'3", 275, but he had 34-inch arms, he's a top 3 pick. He's the second pick overall.
But think about it this way: some teams will have him as the third edge.
Yeah. Because it feels like
the third.
It does feel like Reese is the number 1 guy, and that Bailey is now the number 2 guy. And so
while Sonny Styles has better pressure numbers than both of those other two combined.
Yeah, but you have to be careful about those pressure numbers, because a lot of those pressure numbers come from second level blitzes rather than Sonny Styles is not lining up as a pure edge rusher, so we're not counting those numbers in the same way that we would count. But then look at Arvell Reese, for example. I think he's an unbelievable player, but he had. And I graded it. He had 12 rushes where he attempted to win last season with an outside move. 12. People said that Jalen Walker last year was inexperienced. He had 36 rushes where he tried to win with an outside move. Now, his outside moves, Reese's, were electric. And it's not all about outside moves, right? But still. Yeah,
that's one thing about Ruben Bain. When you watch him on film, he just finds a way. It's not the same rush. He's not bending the edge. He's not getting small. He's doing it all. He has a counter for the counter, and then when you have that counter, he'll kick inside, and then he'll just bowl over a guard if he has to.
What I find fascinating about Bain, and what I think mitigates the long arms question, is that, for example, he's so strong in the lower half. Right, his build is really unconventional anyway. He's 6'3" and whatever, but he's so heavy-handed. Now you can mitigate those heavy hands if you've got a lineman with 34-inch arms and they can get those arms into you already. But he's so thick in the lower half. His bubble is so big, and he's just got this kind of hump move where if you can get into his chest, he's so strong that he's able to create space, essentially with his ass or his thigh, where he just can use that lower half explosion to then create space to be able to get his arms back inside, and he can move those arms so quickly. It's very, very rare that you see Bain just completely taken out of it, even against college tackles. And the level of college tackles is not great, right? But there are ways that show up on tape for him to get wins that don't necessarily mean that he, the arm length is such a thing. It becomes a thing, for example, for Cassius Howe, who I think is probably the best pure speed, get off the ball, dip and rip rusher in the draft, right? David Bailey is really, but Howell is so bendy. He's so bendy, but he can be completely, he's kind of Nick Herbig in a way, I think, Cassius Howe, but without the run ability. But he can be completely overwhelmed at the edge. He's got no lower body power or any of that kind of thing in the same way that Bain does, and that's why Howell obviously is not a top 10 pick, because if Cassius Howell had, was lower in the trunk and had 34-inch arms, then he's a top 10 pick, right? But he doesn't, So, and I think that's the difference. I think those factors with Bain just need to play into account a little bit.
Yeah, I would suggest for those of you that want to watch a little bit more of Ruben Bain, watch the Ole Miss game. That was the semifinal right before they played in the national championship against Indiana. And if you go back and if you believe these numbers, and I do believe them, the pressure rate allowed. Number 1 offensive line in the country was the University of Miami. Number 2 was Ole Miss, allowing, I believe it was a 19.6 pressure rate. Okay,
with 2 very, very, very good draftable tackles in Diego Pounds and Jaden Williams.
Watch that game.
Both in the draft this year, and Pounds to me is a day 3, early day 4 pick, and I like Williams' tape as well.
Yeah, he caught my eye in All-Stars.
Yeah.
Watch that game against Miami. They were devoting 2. They were sending a back. They were sending a tight end, and they were leaving Akeem Mesidor one-on-one on the other side. That was a choice. That was something that they saw on tape. They decided to neutralize Ruben Bain and to essentially cut Akeem Mesidor loose. That was a choice, and they're essentially giving you their evaluation with what was a very, very good offensive line at the time.
I don't think that Bain gets chipped as much as, say, Nick Bosa, for example, when Nick Bosa came out. He does get extra attention. And the thing I think for Messidor is that Messidor doesn't get sacks because Ruben Bain is on the other side. Messidor gets sacks because he's a good pass rusher. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic between the two of them. They're obviously helping one another, but they're not relying on one another. Messidor isn't relying on Bain to take up a double so that he can win singularly on the outside. That's not how it works. But I don't think Bain is getting chipped and doubled and, in the same way that some of the great rushers that we've seen over the last, he's not getting the Myles Garrett treatment at Texas A&M. He's not getting the Nick Bosa treatment at Ohio State. But he wins in different ways. I don't see Ruben Bain as a guy that's going to get 12 to 15 sacks a season. That to me isn't what he is about. Because I don't think
I wouldn't exactly be shocked either.
No, I wouldn't be shocked. But if he's getting 9, 10, to me, he's going to be a tackle for a loss guy. He's going to be an early down edge setter. You're not going to be able to run on Ruben Bain right away. He'll rush from the inside and he'll get some wins against guards and centers and those sorts of things. But I don't think that he's necessarily going to be a guy who's going to come in and have 17 sacks at any point in his career, because that to me just doesn't strike me as what his game is all about. But he's a really good player, and I think if you'd sprint to the podium if he got to 11.
I think he's got to be. I think that overall, when all is said and done, his career is going to look probably a lot like Terrell Suggs, from the Baltimore Ravens, who played for nearly 2 decades, and did he have 12 sacks a year as you were describing? No, not necessarily, but he finished his career and however many years that he had with something like 140 sacks. And
he won Defensive Player of the Year too.
Yeah, and I think that Ruben Bain has absolutely that potential is to be another Terrell Suggs.
All right, Simon, you have a show next later on this week with Kyle Krebs. Do you know what you're going to be talking about yet?
Not really. I mean, we'll probably touch on the Waddle trade and how that affects the first round. We'll look at some of the pro days and some of the standout performers and some of the guys that kind of going under the radar who maybe weren't at the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Game or the Combine, but have turned in big pro days. Daniel Jeremiah released a new mock draft today, so I'll probably have a scoot through that and see some of the names that Daniel's shaping up, because he's obviously so well connected. So yeah, it'll be a kind of along that vein. Might look at we'll have our prospects of the week, and we'll probably talk a little bit about a running back that I think is really, really intriguing, and that's Mike Washington of Arkansas, who I think might end up at the end of the first round with the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and if you want more of Simon, why wouldn't you? You could, of course, go to our Discord, or you could go to his Substack, which is right there, right under his name, right there on YouTube. But if you're listening to us on audio, I always put a link, and it's thelowredzone.substack.com. I always put a link to it. You could click on it on every single one of our promos. All right, that's it. There is no more. Next week, we begin our draft series as we march toward the NFL draft. We will be 4 weeks away. Next week, when we're on the air, we will be 4 weeks away from the NFL draft. But till then.